There are names that carry weight, not just in the way names are attached to people, but in the way certain names come to represent something larger than any single person could hold alone. A legacy, a standard, an expectation that follows you into every room, every decision, every moment of weakness when you wonder if you're truly worthy of what you've inherited. In daytime television, few names carry more of that weight than Forrester. And for the man tasked with embodying the very spine of that dynasty, the son who was always supposed to be the answer, the one who was always supposed to hold everything together, the burden is one that fans have watched him carry for years. But recently, something shifted. Something the actor himself said in a candid interview stopped fans in their tracks, because it turns out that the most powerful performance he may have ever delivered didn't come from a script. It came from somewhere much more personal. Before we get into this, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notification bell. We cover the bold and the beautiful every single week, and what we're about to break down is one of those stories that longtime fans will not want to miss. Now, if you've been watching The Bold and the Beautiful for any length of time, you know exactly who we're talking about. Thorsten Kaye. The man who has portrayed Ridge Forrester since 2013, stepping into one of the most iconic roles in daytime television history and making it entirely his own. And that is no small thing, because Ridge Forrester isn't just a character, he is the bold and the beautiful. He is the gravitational center around which decades of story have orbited. The son Eric Forrester built Forrester Creations for. The man who has loved and lost and fought and failed and risen again in ways that have defined entire chapters of the show's history. Ridge has been at the center of some of the most explosive love triangles daytime television has ever produced. His relationship with Brooke Logan alone has fueled storylines that span literal decades. His rivalry with Bill Spencer has rattled the foundations of Los Angeles society more times than most fans can count. And his complicated, deeply human relationship with his own father, Eric Forrester, has provided some of the most emotionally resonant material the show has offered in recent memory. Thorsten Kaye has navigated all of it, with a particular kind of quiet intensity that longtime viewers have come to recognize immediately. He doesn't play Ridge as a man who has everything figured out. He plays him as a man who is constantly, quietly, trying to live up to something just slightly beyond his reach. And that, apparently, is more personal than most fans ever realized. Because in a recent cast interview, one that has been making its way through fan communities and soap opera circles, Thorsten Kaye said something that stopped people mid-scroll. He was reflecting on the most challenging storylines of his tenure on the show. And according to those who caught the interview, he didn't point to the dramatic confrontations, the romantic heartbreaks, or the explosive family fallouts that fans might have expected. Instead, he pointed inward. He spoke about what it felt like to work through Ridge's emotional journey during Eric Forrester's health crisis, a storyline that reportedly pushed him to places he hadn't visited on screen before. And then he said it, calling it, in his own words, the most honest work he had ever done on the show. 4 words that landed differently than anything Ridge Forrester has ever delivered in a dramatic confrontation scene. The most honest work. Think about that for a moment. From an actor who has been delivering powerful performances for over a decade on one of television's most watched programs, what does it mean when he looks back and says that a particular chapter required something more real than anything before it? What does it mean when the performance that broke through wasn't about passion or fury or romantic longing, but about something quieter, something that looks, from the outside, a lot like grief? Here's where things take a turn, because to understand why those words hit as hard as they did, you have to understand what Thorsten Kaye has actually been carrying for the past several years. Ridge Forrester is a man defined by inheritance. He is the son of Eric Forrester, fashion legend, family patriarch, the man who built everything. And from the very beginning of Ridge's story, there has been a question running just beneath the surface of every storyline he's ever been part of. Is he enough? Does he actually deserve the name? Can he be what his father needs him to be? What his family needs him to be? When it actually counts? Those questions have always been present, but they became impossible to ignore when Eric's health deteriorated. Reportedly, Thorsten Kaye has spoken before about how differently he approaches scenes with John McCook compared to nearly anyone else on the canvas. There is a history there, a complexity, that doesn't have to be manufactured because it has been built across hundreds of scenes over many years. When Ridge sits across from Eric in a hospital room, it isn't just two characters in a crisis. It is, many fans believe, one of daytime television's most layered father-son dynamics playing out in real time. And what Kaye reportedly brought to those scenes, the restraint, the barely held-together composure of a man who has always been the strong one and suddenly doesn't know how to be, is something that viewers noticed immediately. Could that be why his own words about the experience carry so much weight? Is it possible that what audiences were responding to without even realizing it was something that Thorsten Kaye himself was still processing? That the most honest work he'd ever done felt that way precisely because it cost him something real? Many fans think so, but that's not all. Because the thing about the word legacy, the thing Ridge Forrester has been wrestling with his entire life, is that it sounds like something grand and permanent, like something carved into stone. But anyone who has actually stood in the shadow of a powerful parent knows the truth. Legacy isn't stone. It's pressure. It's the constant low-level hum of wondering whether the choices you're making today are ones you'll be proud of when the time comes to look back. Ridge Forrester has made choices that fans have debated, criticized, and occasionally celebrated for decades. He has been selfish when he should have been generous. He has been stubborn when he should have listened. He has chosen passion over wisdom more times than he could probably count. And yet, here's the thing that soap fans know better than most audiences. He has also fought fiercely for the people he loves. He has shown up, repeatedly, in moments when it would have been far easier to walk away. He has carried the Forrester name not with elegance necessarily, but with a kind of bruised, imperfect devotion that feels, in its own way, completely earned. Reportedly, Thorsten Kaye himself has reflected on this tension, on what it means to play a character who is simultaneously aspirational and deeply flawed, on the responsibility that comes with being the face of a show's central family for so many years. And apparently, it's a responsibility he has never taken lightly, even when, maybe especially when, the work required him to go somewhere emotionally that felt uncomfortable and raw and real. Isn't that, when you think about it, exactly what the best performances always require? Isn't that the difference between acting and truth? Isn't that what makes the difference between a performance that entertains and one that actually stays with you long after the screen goes dark? Of course, there's another side to this, because Thorsten Kaye is not Ridge Forrester. He is an actor, and the distinction matters. Ridge is a man trapped, in many ways, by the mythology built around him. Thorsten Kaye, by all accounts, is something different entirely. By all accounts, those who know him, cast members, crew, longtime colleagues, describe someone whose off-screen presence carries none of Ridge's volatility and most of his warmth. Someone who brings a steadiness to set that anchors scenes even before a single line is delivered. Sources within the soap community have long noted that Kaye is particularly known for the generosity he extends to other actors in emotionally demanding scenes, the kind of presence that makes the performances of the people around him better. That's a particular kind of gift, and it raises a question that fans have been quietly asking for a while now. How much of what makes Ridge Forrester compelling, the undercurrent of genuine feeling beneath all the drama, comes not from the writing, but from the man delivering it? How much of Ridge's capacity for real emotional depth is Thorsten Kaye simply being truthful in a way the character's circumstances allow? Many longtime viewers believe the answer is more than most people give credit for. Because Ridge has had other faces over the decades, talented actors who brought their own interpretations to the role. But there's a reason the version of Ridge that Thorsten Kaye has inhabited feels, to so many fans, like the definitive one. And perhaps that interview, those 4 specific words about honesty and craft, gives us a small window into exactly why. Here's where things take another turn. Because if Thorsten Kaye is indeed doing the most honest work of his career right now, if the emotional layers being written for Ridge in this chapter of the show are drawing something genuinely new from a performer who has already given a decade of powerful work, then what does that mean for what's coming? Soap fans know that the show's writers don't create these kinds of emotionally complex situations by accident. When a character is pushed to confront legacy, grief, and the limits of his own identity, it is almost always because the story is preparing to take him somewhere significant. Some viewers speculate that Ridge's journey through his father's health crisis is laying the groundwork for a fundamental shift in who he is, or who he allows himself to become. Others believe that what's being built is a reckoning, a moment where Ridge Forrester finally has to answer the question that has haunted him his entire life, not in a dramatic confrontation, not in a romantic ultimatum, but quietly, honestly, in the space between who he was supposed to be and who he actually is. What would that look like? Would Ridge finally find peace with his own imperfections? Would the show give us a version of this character who has stopped running from the weight of his name and learned, at last, to simply carry it? Many fans believe that's exactly where the story is heading, and if Thorsten Kaye's own words about this chapter of his work are any indication, if the actor himself feels something different, something more real, happening in these scenes, then perhaps the most compelling version of Ridge Forrester's story is still ahead of us. And then there is what Kaye actually said, the line that fans who caught the interview have been sharing and discussing ever since. Because after reflecting on everything, on the emotional demands of the recent storylines, on what it means to play a character defined by legacy and loss, on the particular weight of those scenes with John McCook, Thorsten Kaye brought it back to something simple. He called it the most honest work he had ever done on this show. Not the most dramatic, not the most challenging in a technical sense. Honest. Of all the words available to a veteran actor reflecting on decades of craft, honest is the one he reached for. And in that single word, fans who have watched Thorsten Kaye play Ridge Forrester through triumph and devastation, through love stories and betrayals and family crises, suddenly understood something they may not have been able to articulate before. He has always been in there. Behind every explosive scene, behind every quiet moment of restraint, behind every look that said more than the dialogue ever could. The man has always been honest. It just took the right storyline to show everyone what that actually looks like at full depth. For longtime Bold and the Beautiful fans, there is something particularly moving about all of this. Because Ridge Forrester is a character who has been on screens for nearly 40 years. He predates most of the people currently watching the show. He has been the constant, the North Star, around which generation after generation of storylines has been plotted. And yet somehow, he still feels alive. He still feels capable of surprising people. He still feels like a character with more story to tell. That doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen simply because a show has been on the air long enough. That happens because of the performers who commit to keeping those characters real, who refuse to let them calcify into caricature, who keep finding new layers even in well-worn emotional territory. Thorsten Kaye has been doing that for over a decade, and apparently he's still finding things in Ridge Forrester that he hasn't shown us yet. Isn't that remarkable? After all these years, all these storylines, isn't it something that the man playing Ridge Forrester can look at this chapter of the character's life and say, honestly, that it pushed him somewhere new? Doesn't that make you want to watch? Doesn't that make you want to pay closer attention to every scene Ridge is in, to look for what Thorsten Kaye described, to watch for the moments where the honesty breaks through the surface? For many fans, it absolutely does. There are names that carry weight, and there are people who, over time, prove themselves worthy of them. Ridge Forrester has spent a lifetime trying to live up to a name that was given to him before he had any say in the matter. And Thorsten Kaye has spent more than a decade trying to honor a role that carries the weight of nearly 4 decades of history. In his own words, the most honest work he's ever done. Perhaps that's the real legacy being built here. Not in the dramatic confrontations or the romantic declarations or the explosive family fallouts that fans will be talking about for years. but in the quiet, honest moments, the ones where an actor stops performing and simply tells the truth. And if that's where Ridge Forrester's story is heading, if what's coming next is built on that foundation of honesty and depth, then longtime fans of the bold and the beautiful may be about to witness something they haven't seen in a very long time. A man finally, fully, at peace with his own name. Whatever that looks like, however long it takes, we'll be watching.